Hello, I'm George Ellis with Coronado Beach Productions, and this is another episode of Coronado Beach Podcast. Today we have a great guest, Stephanie Kervez, who is an actress, producer, director, and screenwriter, and we'll be talking about films and books and other topics that come up during the podcast. Today we have Stephanie Kervez, who is an actress, screenwriter, producer, and has many other talents. And I'm glad to have you here, Stephanie.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today.
That's great, great. We're going to be talking about a lot of things today. One of the things that we'll talk about is some of the movies that you've either made or been in. I think that that's a great thing you've been able to do in your career.
Oh yes, I think so. Yes, indeed. I've got a baby face, but I'm an old soul, and I have quite a bit of experience in the film industry for someone my age. I think I'm truly a multi-hyphenate, and I think that's an exciting thing to be in this day and age. I don't like to be boxed into one thing, you know.
Well, that's great, and one of the things I've noticed is you have that lovely accent.
Oh yes.
and tell us, where are you really from?
Oh, I'm really from Florida. My name is Stephanie Kervez. I am an American actor, not British. I just do a lot of different dialects and character voices. I'm really involved in voiceover, and I really enjoy that craft.
That's great. And does that keep you very busy?
Oh, yes, it does. I actually get most of my work right now from voiceovers. Most of my income comes from that, which is pretty nice. I can go in my pajamas, go in my closet, no makeup, no hair done, and just talk like a little girl. Or an old man, you know.
That's great, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about some of the movies that you've done. I know that you're an award-winning actress.
Yes, I am, which is super exciting.
Yeah, and I know you've had nominations in some movies, like you've done The Red Clock, where you were nominated, I think, for Best Lead Actress.
Yes, I was. That was a really exciting project. Alexandra Balda directed that, and it was a really psychological horror film and a lot of tough emotions to portray in that, a lot of gore, so to say, but it was a really character-driven film, and I had a lot of fun doing that. I like to delve into the darker side of things a lot, so as you'll see in most of my work.
Yeah, I think your genre, as they would say, which is a French term, is sort of horror, drama, mystery.
Yes, I do a lot of horror. Florida is actually, their independent film scene is really known for horror, and luckily that's kind of what I'm good at. I'm good at crying and screaming and having mental breakdowns, and it's cool being on set and getting like praised for it instead of like shunned for displaying those kind of emotions as you would in normal society. So I think it's a really cool way to express emotion. It's allowed me to heal a lot of my mental health issues in many ways as well.
Okay, good. And then you did another movie, Monmouth Defector.
Oh yes, I was British in that one.
Okay.
I was a British secret agent, and I had a big fight scene with this big 6-foot-tall ex-military dude. And it was cool. I do stunt choreography as well, so that was a really cool chance to kind of portray that aspect of my skill set.
Okay. And then you did Sister Psycho.
Yes, that's a homage to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. I play the female Norman Bates. Everything's gender bent. It's kind of like a new take on the story. And that project, it's very artsy. It's a little risque. It's a lot of horror elements in it, a lot of psychological elements in it, and I had a lot of fun with that. That character made me so nervous to prepare for, because I mean, the parlor scene with Norman Bates, that's so iconic. We all go a little mad sometimes. You know, everyone knows that line, and I had to basically do a rendition of that scene. But I think it's some of my best work, to be honest.
Well, that's great. That's great. And then you actually won an award as Best Supporting Actress in Pumpkin.
The Pumpkin Man, yeah, at a big horror film festival. I won Best Supporting Actress for that. That's a really good indie feature film I was in. I basically play the best friend of the main character. She's kind of a goody two-shoes. She's in her last year of high school. She really wants to get into like Harvard or Yale, something prestigious, and really further her career. But she gets roped into this occult stuff, unfortunately, and it kind of derails her life. And I really enjoyed playing that character because she was complex. Out of everyone in that movie, I think. That's another thing I'm drawn to, complexity. I don't like one-note kind of characters in acting and writing. So I basically end up sacrificing someone else to save myself. And there's a big pivotal scene. And that was a really hard thing for me to do, but I think it was really emotional and it really paid off. And do I survive? You'll have to watch and find out.
Okay. And then speaking of writing, you have an award-winning screenplay.
I do.
That is Parallel Lives. And I think you're looking to do a proof of concept.
Yes, right as we speak, I am casting and crewing up for my proof of concept shoot for Parallel Lives. It'll be about a 10-minute short, which is basically the opening to my feature. And basically it centers around these two main characters. Sam, she's 19 and she's been in this abusive relationship. She's at a mental hospital healing her wounds. And Alan, he's early 30s, a failed writer, and he has his own demons as well. But there are also alternate versions of them. Sam has this doppelganger named Ava, who was the love of Alan's life. And Alan has this doppelganger named Danny, who is Sam's abuser. So when they meet at the end of the short and they see each other, he breaks into like tears of joy and she screams. And that's where we ended off. And the feature really delves into their relationships and their alters and why they have them in their lives, so to say.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't really know what's real, what's a dream, if they're crazy, if they're sane, because it takes place in a mental hospital. So everything is really open to your own judgment and interpretation.
Okay. And how did, when you won that award, you were still in school?
I was still in college, yes.
Okay. And tell us, what was the feeling like when, obviously you're in school and you're actually already in a professional world winning an award? What was that like? How did that make you feel?
It was very exciting. It was good to finally have acknowledgement that I was actually a good writer, because up until then I never really submitted things. I kind of kept my works to myself. And my works, they're very meaningful. They come from the heart. I'm not going to write something just to write it. I have to write something because I really, really want to. It needs to get put out on the page. There's passion behind it. And I think that's what really speaks from my work.
Okay. And we're going to get a little bit later into some of your writing. You're writing a book.
Yes, I am as well. I'm very busy.
Okay, so we're going to get to that in a minute, but you also did a movie called Forest of Death.
I did. That was with DBS Films. They're a really cool indie film company. They work a lot with their fans and they collaborate with other horror indie filmmakers in Florida. Mm-hmm. And that one I play Tracy. She's like a college-age girl. She works for a newspaper. She goes to this secluded cabin with her friend and two other guys. And I kind of hit it off with this guy, Dylan, and then stuff starts going down. We find out there's a shapeshifter in the woods, and we don't know if our friends are our friends, who's the shapeshifter. And we have to basically at the end escape. And I take this flaming torch into the woods and run for my life.
Okay, all right. Well, that's great. And talking about movies and talking about awards and things like that, we at Coronado Beach Productions, we have a couple of indie shorts that we did last year.
Yeah, exciting.
We have some projects going this year. The first short that we did was Medical Karma.
Oh yes, I got a chance to see that.
Yeah, and what were your thoughts on that? It's always good to get some feedback.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, especially because the first character that is being examined is female, and the male doctor kind of dismisses her pain, but then it comes back to bite him. In true medical karma, he has the same kind of similar energy, and she comes back and she diagnoses him and she tells him to suck it up just like he told her. So I think it's cool, like physicians, when they really understand the pain their patients are going through, they're better able to treat them and treat them as a person, They're not just looking at them as a list of diagnoses.
Right, and so for me, as a physician in background, I think that a lot of that movie came from the opioid crisis that we went through.
Yes, that as well.
Over the past few years, and how we have to be very cautious in prescribing opiates. And so, sometimes we say, well, maybe opiates aren't needed. We can go with, what we call non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like Advil and Tylenol. But sometimes, there's a lot of pain, and you just have to, go with something that's stronger. But that's where that came from.
Yeah, it's interesting because you never know if someone's lying about their pain or not to
Right.
get the drugs. So I think that's a cool take on it.
Yeah, and the actress Emma Tibbetts, who was in there, I think you may have met her before.
Yeah, I actually took an acting class with her a few years ago.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was exciting.
Small world, right?
I know. I eventually meet everyone again that I've met on sets. So It's
Okay.
pretty cool. The Florida film community is really tight-knit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's kind of what I've noticed. In looking at your career now, which you would think with everything you've accomplished, you'd be like 70 years old at this point.
My soul is. I look 16, my soul is 70.
And so you're in the middle of trying to do a proof of concept, as we discussed.
Yes.
Do you have a lot of other ideas in your mind of things you want to do down the road?
Yes, I always have ideas percolating in my head. I have like a notes app on my phone. I write down all the writing ideas that come into my head. There's probably hundreds of them in that list now, and eventually I'll tackle some of those. But right now I'm really focused on Parallel Lives and my novel, De-Evolution.
Okay, and I guess you're introducing our topic. We're going to talk about books now. And one of the books that I want to plug today is called Histoire Macabre, Paradox, which is a book that's written in French. And I'm able to read French. My mother was French, so I know.
Oh, I can only do a French accent, so that's exciting.
You can?
Yes, oui.
And the author, I know her from online, and we're going to be coming out with a book down the road, not too long from now. It's getting formatted. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you talked about the novel that you're writing.
Yes.
And I think you had mentioned that you're actually writing it longhand.
Yes, I'm old school that way. I like to write things by hand. It flows better from my brain. It has the emotional impact better, I think. And then I type it up. It takes so long, but I think the quality is worth it in the end.
Well, that's good. That's good. And what is the book about? Do you have a title yet or anything?
Yeah, it's tentatively called De-Evolution. If you ever read Kurt Vonnegut, it's very similar to that, like a satire on society and the kind of stuff we're going through, the issues we have. So basically it takes place on this alien planet. So Earth has been destroyed in nuclear war, but thousands of years later, nature takes back over and some humans survive and they live in peace and harmony with nature. The aliens come, they take them, they put them in zoos on their planet. So in that aspect, it's really a look at how we treat animal life on our own planet. So, and basically when they find humans, they find these records, and their primitive state, as they see it, is with technology locked up in cookie cutter houses with their iPhones plugged into VR headsets. So they create these habitats for these people that are very high tech, very isolated, and that really affects their mental health as it does our mental health today in our society. And the other aspect I want to plug about it is it's a kind of a flip on the story of Adam and Eve. Our main character's Adam. He's a teenage boy. He's grown up in the zoo. His parents had him there. He's never known anything else. And then one day he meets this girl, Eve, who comes to visit the zoo with her captors, and she's kept as a pet. Basically, humans are kept as pets. They're in zoos. They're hunted for sport. Their meat is a delicacy, much like we have with farm animals nowadays. And she meets Adam, and they start talking about this idyllic paradise of Earth and returning there one day. And so the whole story is them plotting to return back to the garden instead of escape from it, so to say.
Well, that's great. I think the topic of mental health is very good.
Mental health kind of pervades everything I do. Even though this novel is more environmental, it has to come in because that's a big part of my life and what I stand for.
And years ago, I did some consulting work for the county, and they have a big jail that they saw a lot of people come in, and a lot of folks who came in as inmates, it was because they had mental health issues and were confused and trespassed or things like that. And at the time, there was really no method to handle that situation. And so they ended up in the jail. And we had a lot of mental health specialists in the jail. We had, at different times, 1 or 2 psychiatrists to try to deal with all those issues. And then since then, there's been more funding for mental health issues.
Exactly, yes.
To create, venues for treatment that would be the appropriate treatment, at this point.
Yeah, it is unfortunately still hard for a lot of people to get treatment, especially inpatient, the people who really need it. But I think we're definitely going many steps in the right direction. I think since COVID hit, a lot of people really understand depression and anxiety because when we were all isolated for those 2 weeks, those 2 months, everyone really came to understand what it feels like to have those ailments, even if it was just for a short time. So we're a lot more open and accepting of people who struggle with that, but we're still really have a lot of stigma against conditions like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. which in my novel I kind of explore all of these different illnesses. A lot of it takes place in a group inpatient therapy session, and all the patients kind of tell their story, and they all have these different battles, mental health battles they're dealing with.
Right.
So I think it's cool that every illness gets to tell its story.
Right. That's great. That's great. So finally, the one book I wanted to talk about, of course, is a plug for our company, and it's called Surgical Approach to Meat Cutting, Cutting, Carving, and Cooking for Success. And that's a book that my son and myself have co-written. And I'm a surgeon, and that involves cutting and things like that. And he's a meat cutter and a chef. And he worked in my office as a CNA and learned some techniques there about approaching different kind of procedures. And so some of those things, especially the precision and things like that, he brought into meat cutting. And as the book is going to be coming out shortly. But as a concept, what are your thoughts? I know we talked about this before as a book. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's interesting how like the same techniques can be seen in different professions. Kind of like how I have a degree in environmental studies, but I'm using that to create a novel instead of going out and actually like being in the field. There's so many different ways to use your skill set. You don't have to go in one set field. You can kind of explore and create your own tailored field. And I think that your book really exemplifies that.
Well, great. This has been a great interview.
Oh yeah, I've had a lot of fun.
I really have enjoyed having you come out and talk to us about your career. I think that for the folks who are watching, you have had a great opportunity in meeting Stephanie Kervez here.
It's been an honor, folks.
She has obviously a lot of talents, very experienced, obviously a happy person. I can tell by your smile. And
yes, it's taken a long time to get here, but I finally accepted myself and my demons, and I'm doing what I love. And I mean, what more could you ask for in life?
Right. Well, great. Thank you for coming and joining us. Hope to see you again
Definitely.
When your book comes out, when our book comes out. We can do another session, and
that'd be great.
That'd be nice. Great. Well, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.